Yep.
So you're gonna turn on this one first?
Yep.
Because that is your lovely. All right. It's 5:30, Mama, and we're going. We're go.
All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome. Hey, David, because you just walked in, can I have you pull the door closed? Thank you. And Joe, would you grab this one? Thanks so much.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, Dad.
That's
my dad.
Yes.
Shout out to him, I guess.
Hello, and thank you for being in this panel. We are so excited. Just one of the announcements that I wanted to make because I think it's super cool. So when we started planning Norfolk's first Pride Festival in 2020, which got canceled because COVID and whatever, my original goal was to have 75 people at this event. That was my original goal. We have far surpassed 500 people through our gates today. So. Can I introduce you? Okay. So in the room we do have a special guest, Richard Tollefson. Awesome. Richard is from Wausau, Nebraska.
Is anybody here from Wausau?
No.
Just Amy. So Richard's organization, there is the Kellenberger Tollefson Center for LGBTQ Philanthropy, which is a part of the Arizona Community Foundation. I remembered all of that, you guys. So that organization, along with the Phoenix Philanthropy Group, which is your company or your organization, are event sponsors. So on a whim, we contacted Richard. We said, hey, we know you're part of the community. You're from the area. We need money. How do you feel about that? And he was so gracious and generous to help us out with this event. So could we give Richard a round of applause? And he made the trip from Phoenix, which is pretty flippin' cool. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah.
I mean, this is so exciting.
Yeah. Would you ever have guessed in Northeast Nebraska?
No.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry there's no one else from Wausau, Nebraska.
Sorry about
Do you have
the...
anything else you want to say? Because I have a microphone here if you'd like to say something. So that
So-
the people online, we're live streaming.
Okay. Well, I just said congratulations, and this is really terrific. I mean, over 500 people at your first Pride. It's really great. I moved away from Nebraska a long time ago. And, you know, growing up in a town of 720 people, which is now 600 people, and as many people in the room undoubtedly thinking you're the only gay kid, you know, for hundreds, thousands of miles. And, you know, then now seeing a community like this around here, it's really terrific. So, congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. I need to apologize to Eli because I should have known better about the microphone, and so I apologize for that. So yes, we are live streaming. So also the folks that are online, I want to welcome you to this panel. Hopefully we don't have any technical difficulties, and thank you for joining us here. Yes, so Pride, so exciting. These are some friends that I have invited to be here. I'm so honored to be amongst them. My name is Mo Bailey, and I'm the Vice President of Pride. I will be the President of Pride officially on October 1st, so we just voted the other night, and that'll be my thing. I'm so excited to be here. So. Moved to the Norfolk area after retiring from the military. He was recruited by Faith Regional to be here. Like, can we start a Pride? And they're like, you're crazy. And he said, okay. But can we start a Pride? And they did. And I have him to thank so much. I would have never had the guts, honestly. I would have never had the guts to do that here. And because someone had already paved the way, I have the confidence to come in and do this and put on this festival, and I have so many people to thank for that, but it's been pretty incredible. And thank you to each of you for being here. For the allies in the room, thank you for being open and listening and hearing our stories, because I believe that stories have the power to Where do you live? It's a lot of questions. Does that make sense? So like name, pronouns, where you live.
Profession, where you live.
Yeah. And also if you want to share your identity in the LGBTQ community, that would be great. So take it away. Grab your mic. Perfect.
Am I doing this right? Okay.
Yes.
My name is Erin Kuchera, and I live here in Norfolk. And I am an instructor at Northeast Community College, and I teach a bunch of different science classes, including the most nerdy ones you could think of, zoology, botany, things like that. Yeah. So pronouns, her, him works just fine, and I identify as lesbian in this community. Did I miss anything? No?
That's pretty cool.
Okay, good.
Okay. My name is Karen Takota. I'm a freshman year at the high school.
Pronouns.
It, they, I guess, and I am pansexual. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, my name is Jacob Martinez, something of the party. But gosh, what do I do? I'm a singer, songwriter. I graduated in musical theater, and I model and act, and I just graduated as an EMT as well. So just a little bit of everything is what I do.
Where do you live?
I live here in Norfolk, and I actually just came out as gay 1 year ago. So pretty new to the community, but I've known all my life, and so that's nothing new. But I'm super, super, super excited to be here. Oh, pronouns he, him.
Hello, everyone. How you doing, Norfolk? How you doing? You are so quiet. So I am Martina Shakers. I am a drag queen. I live in Sioux City, Iowa. I run SUX Pride, known as Sioux Pride. I've been holding that festival now for 6 years. We've had Pride in the past, but I wanted to do it on my own, and it's turned out great. I have lived in Sioux City for most of my life. I am gay, and if you're single, hey. I'm always looking for a good future ex-husband. So my pronouns, I use he, she, they, them. Just call me. It doesn't matter. I'll answer to about anything. That's me.
Gosh, how do you top that? I didn't mean anything by that. I'm Brad Hughes, and after 30 years in broadcasting here in Norfolk, I moved away about 7 years ago or so. I still have a home and family here, but I primarily live in Omaha and part-time in Los Angeles with my work. After broadcasting, I'm now a partner in a telemedicine and a discount program for employers nationwide. So he, him, and I think I covered it all.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
And those of you who are watching at home,
that smooth radio voice. My name is Eli Rigatuso. Pronouns are he, they. He is the pronoun I love. They is acceptable. Right? Make it easy for you. She, I might not be too happy if you give me that one. So just remember that and we all good, right? I'm from Omaha, Nebraska. I am the founder of Speaking of Happy, which is running your live stream for this event today. So for those of you who are watching, if you have questions, I'm watching the live stream here on my phone, and I will also, throw those in there. But by day, I'm a video producer director at Bellevue University. And so video is my life and my love. I do voiceover work for them and a variety of other things. But that wasn't enough. So that's why I created Speaking of Happy. I do a lot of facilitating and training around what it is to be transgender, non-binary, and gender non-conforming. I hear your school here might need some help. A few of your schools here. So I'd be more than happy to come in and facilitate some training to uplift some knowledge and awareness, right? Creating open and affirming spaces. All right, that's it. That's all I got.
Awesome. Sorry. Awesome. So we have folks we're all from Nebraska, besides the lovely Martina, but she's an hour and a half away.
Yeah.
About? Yeah.
I live in Sioux City, so literally I cross the bridge and I'm in Nebraska.
Yeah.
So. And I watch the Husker game while putting on my makeup, so
Yes, close enough. So I am curious to hear from each of you. What was your coming out experience? Okay, if you're not part of the community, you also know that you come out like every day. Like it's a regular thing to reintroduce yourself to people and that sort of thing. But I'm just curious, like your big one, the main one, whatever you consider your main one, like what was that process and how did you experience it? Do you want to start?
Sure. Well, I'm from a town of 300, so I got your beat over there. And it's just anyone who's from Norfolk, bigger than Norfolk, smaller than Norfolk, you've got everyone's got stories, but just kind of just very not a lot of people there, not a lot of people that are considered different. Everyone wants to put somebody in a box, but I just didn't belong in any one of those boxes. And, I was actually really okay with that. So it took me a while just because there was just a lot of homophobia and just downgrading people through language that I just didn't really care for. And I just like, why can't everyone just be who they are? And so going to college was great. Going to grad school was great. And I just finally just got to a point where who cares what people think of me? And that was a journey. But I got there, in my 20s. And kind of never looked back. But yes, it was a process. It wasn't like everybody all at once. It was kind of, how do I feel safe for a while? The people in my life I trusted the most. And it was just it actually took several years to fully come out, and I still do. But it's just kind of it just started from just finally kind of accepting who I was and saying, who cares if I don't fit in a box that somebody wants to put me in? And, screw that box. Sorry.
Well, I've lived in Norfolk my whole life, and my mom actually lived in Minneapolis, I think, right? Thanks, Dad. For a few years as a photographer, so she was pretty versed in the early LGBTQIA plus kind of world. But when I was in 6th grade, I met a couple people who were introduced me to everything, and that was pretty much when I realized, dang, I'm not straight. But I kind of kept it from my parents for a while because it was scary coming out in a place that I knew was quite homophobic, and eventually they went through my phone and found that I was gay. So that was kind of on me, but yeah, that was how I came out, and then we cried, and it's fine now. But the second time I came out as non-binary, we were at the Omaha Pride Fest, and I thought I'd told them, but apparently I didn't, and I bought a non-binary flag, and they were like, oh, okay, that's okay. So that's pretty much the entire story.
Thank you.
Oh, geez. Well, I grew up here in Norfolk, as I said before, in a Christian household, very conservative family and community around here, and I love them so much, and I owe so much of who I am to who they are. And it was when I was in New York that I finally decided to publicly come out. Growing up with so much, like any chance there was, or any time there was femininity, or any time there was parts of me that weren't this kind of manly man that I felt like my family kind of expected of me, it was always shut down, and it was always just kind of told to be put away into a different place. And so building all that fear and all this anguish growing up, it became too much. And it was when I was in New York that I was talking to God, and I was just like, God, like, I'm always fighting this. I'm always trying to overcome this. Like, what is going on? And God finally kind of just told me, do you see this mountain that you have created of fear and of pain that I didn't create in you? I don't want this for you. This fear and this anguish has been put on by so many people and so many hurts around you. So take that mountain down. Do me a favor, Jacob, and take that mountain down so that you can actually start seeing my love for you and knowing that my love is so much bigger than you make it. And that was kind of the turning point. That was kind of the, oh my God, you're so right, God. I myself have created, because of so many different circumstances and so many different things, created this mountain that was just stopping me for so long from truly loving my own self and therefore loving people so much better. And so that's kind of my story of coming out. God was kind of just like, tear this mountain down and start loving people fully, like I love you fully. But it was kind of blocked by this mountain of fear and pain that I kind of just accumulated over the years. So that was my coming out, I guess. Anyway.
So my coming out, I was actually married to a woman who, after a year, we got divorced, and she ran away with my best friend's sister. So she was a lesbian, I was gay. I should have known that. I baked the wedding cake. She built the arch we got married under.
I need this to be a show.
And
on
I'm
Netflix
seriously not
at some
kidding.
point.
It's so true. So I, moving up, living in Sioux City, thought there's no way I can ever come out. So I actually moved to Denver, Colorado. And I moved there 4 days before Christmas. And on the second or third day, I decided I was going to venture into the city and I was going to go to a gay bar. And I went into this gay bar and they were singing karaoke. And I was like, oh my God, these people are incredibly talented. I don't know if I'm gay. Had nothing to do with sexuality. It had to do with the fact I'm tone deaf. So I actually lived out there for a while, and I had a boyfriend, and my mother was coming to visit me for 2 weeks. And at this point, I was pretty much living with this guy, and I thought, how am I going to hide him for 2 weeks? There's no way. So one night, and I'm not really proud of this, I got super drunk. And my mother was in the military. She was the first woman to ever be a chief in the U.S. Air Force in Iowa. So she was pretty badass. She also knew how to do nuclear war and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah. So I called her and I said, I'm drunk. I pick your nursing home. Get over it. And I hung up. And 15 minutes later, my mother called me back. She goes, I'm a veteran. You're not picking my nursing home. And I already knew. And I was like, oh, well, that kind of took the wind right out of my sail. And I thought, okay, fine. So she came out and I gave her 2 weeks of love and attention, and she met my boyfriend, and I got her really drunk for the first time in her life. Took her to a gay bar, gave her highlights because she needed them. And she showed me that there was so much that just because she was conservative, I had judged her for that, and that she thought, you know, I love you no matter what. And so that was kind of cool, and I ended up moving back to Sioux City like a year later, and my mother felt she was going to tell my grandmother that I was gay for me, which not a great idea. And my grandmother looked at her and she goes, I've known that since he was a child. He liked that Greg Louganis, who was an Olympic diver, way too much. Yes, I had the loose curly perm too. My senior pictures prove it. And that's how my mom goes, fine, he's also a drag queen. How about that? My grandmother goes, I know, I made his last costume. It was fabulous. So yeah, I had my coming out, but every day is a coming out because there are new people that come into your life. There are new communities that you come to. Like, I'm staying in a hotel right now where I'm like, I don't know, are they accepting of this? What, thank God we're right on the end so that way I can dart out to the car. But I started to go out to the car and people saw me pretty much made up and they were like, oh my gosh, you're so pretty, you're so sweet. So that is one thing that with Norfolk, you might think, oh, small community, very conservative, but you know what? People can show you love that you never thought was possible. So don't close your heart down and your mind down and say, oh, these people could never be accepting of this because, baby, I walk into Walmart like this in Sioux City and they're like, hey, Martina. I'm like, what? Leave me alone. And when I don't have makeup on, I walk in and they're like, hey, Martina. I'm like, what? Leave me alone. So keep your mind open, keep your heart open, and meet new people and make judgments for yourself.
My turn. Well, if you've never been to a drag show, this is pretty much like they all are. They're very entertaining and a lot of fun, and very enjoyable. And so you do have a talent because you're pretty good at that. So, when I think about a story of coming out, what comes to my mind is a couple of words: difficult and ongoing. It doesn't matter if you're a parent dealing with a child that's coming out or if you're an adult that comes out later in life. It's a really complicated process, not just living in a conservative area. It has many other emotions that go with it, and it's a tough process. And for those of you that are allies and support people going through things like that, bless your heart. It's special because love can change a lot of things. It's I spent 30 years as a broadcaster here, and the irony of me walking into this building today, 15 or so years ago when we built this building, my name's actually out there on the board because I was on the board when we built this building, this art center, many years ago. And then to come back in this capacity is a little ironic for me. But if I learned a lesson in all of it and the ongoing process is that I've spent a lifetime lying to myself. And when you lie to yourself, you lie to everybody else around you. And it hurts a lot of people. And for me, that's been a real struggle. I've got family that's here that have been a part of this journey, willingly or unwillingly. And, it's a tough, difficult thing. But there is hope. There are events like this that give us the opportunity to sit down and communicate and educate. People talk about ignorance. People are just ignorant. They have no idea. I don't believe that it's ignorance. I think it's just lack of being in an environment where the LGBT, you say it for me because it's got too many letters now. Thank you.
Alphabet Army.
Every letter means something.
Yes, I know they do. I don't even know what letter I am, but that's okay. It's almost the whole alphabet at this point. But it's tough. But there is help out there. There is support. There is resources now that didn't used to be there. But, reconciling things with your family, coming out later in life, after 30 years serving as United Way president here twice and on many community boards in a business leadership position for 30 years, running the radio stations for the last 15 years that I was here, I had to leave town to deal with this because, our company was a part of the daily news and there were shareholders taking over that had a Christian mission of their own, which I respect and entitlement, but, that wasn't going to work for me to continue doing what I was doing here with that situation. And I knew I would have to leave and do something else. Today, I don't know whether I mentioned I'm involved in a telemedicine company, but anyway, I'm rambling.
You're okay.
I haven't had a microphone for a long time.
I know.
You give me a microphone and I'll go on and go on. But, stay true to yourself. Try to be as honest as you can. It's so hard. It's something I still struggle with. There's a lot of guilt in being who you are. And when you lie to yourself about who you are and you're lying to everyone else, there's a lot of damage that can be done. So for those that go through that, there are better days ahead. And for those that are allies or parents or people supporting that, be there for those people. Recognize those things. Give them encouragement. Because at the end of the day, what this really is all about is simply equality. And what does that mean? It just means being kind to each other, you know? It doesn't matter who you sleep with, who you don't sleep with, what you look like, how you dress, whether you paint your nails or not. I mean, who cares? Come with me to Los Angeles. Come walking down the street. You can see everything there. This room looks like nothing crazy by comparison to a walk there. But anyway, I hope that answers the question.
Yeah.
You're sharing the microphone with me. It's all right. It's all right. Oh, wow. Which coming out should I tell you first? Right? You know, born in 1965, first generation born off the reservation. My mother was a product of the boarding schools. I came out the first time, according to my mother. Now, I didn't hear this story until I was 50, right? When I was 50 years old, in 2015, I'm 56 now, I watched an interview on 2020 of a trans person that I'm not going to mention because she's not really a person that I would look up to at this point because she hates herself somewhat still and doesn't really necessarily do good things for our community. But anyway, I watched this 2020 interview, and at that point, I was identifying as someone who was gay because that was a word that I could settle on, right? I wasn't a lesbian, and I certainly wasn't a butch lesbian because I'll tell you, back in the day, I was one of the hottest drag queens. Yeah, see, Martina knows. I was one of the hottest drag queens. Were you at the Max that time that I? Oh, you were. See,
I'm not lesbian.
There was a fashion show. There was a fashion show, and I did this thing. Anyway, so I watched this 2020 interview, and there were a few things that this particular person said that really resonated with me. Right? I finally heard a story I could relate to. And I couldn't stop crying because I knew that I was trans. Now what do? I had been providing care for my mother who had dementia. In 2015, I was seeing her 2-3 times a day or a week, and I had to drive out because we brought her out to this assisted living facility just outside of Omaha because she didn't want to live with myself and my partner anymore. That's a whole nother story. But I went out, and for giggles and kicks, I thought to myself, this was the day after that interview. And I said to my mom, I said, hey, did you see that Jenner interview last night? I know I just said a name, but anyway. And my mom goes, oh my gosh, I did. My favorite part was when she pulled her ponytail holder out of her hair. Her hair fell down on her shoulders. She is beautiful. What did you think? And I'm flabbergasted because in the interview, Caitlin wasn't Caitlin yet. In the interview, she was being dead named throughout. In the interview, Diane Sawyer was using male pronouns. But my mom saw a beautiful woman, right? And so I'm blown away because not only did she watch it, but here she couldn't tell you what she had for lunch. She couldn't always remember my name. She knew I was her kid at that point, but she couldn't always remember my name. She tells me this scene, and I was like, wow. And then now she's asking me, what did you think? And I said, well, what, about the interview? And she goes, no, about your growing up. Yeah. And I'm like, well, Mom, to be honest, I believe, and at this point, see, my words have changed over time since 2015 as well. But at that point, my words to her were, yeah, well, you know, Mom, I believe that I'm a boy born in a girl's body, because that was the wording I had in that moment. She's like, oh, I know it. Ever since you were this big, you told me you were a boy. And I kid you not, the memories that became reality, the things that snapped into focus for me, and this is my mom. I'm slowly losing her to dementia. And she affirmed me so powerfully in that moment. And I was like, wow, what a gift. And then she sits back up again. She's like, well, I'm going to call you Charlie. And I was like, well, I'm going to work on that name thing. I don't know if I like Charlie. We'll work on that name thing. But the reason why I started with that story and I didn't start with the first one, right? I came out the first time when I was 5, 6, 7. I don't know. How old are you when you're about this tall, right? That's what my mom said. Most trans kiddos know around 4 or 5 years old, y'all. It's ingrained. For those of you who are cisgender, meaning you were born assigned a gender and your whole body, mind, soul, heart, everything agrees with that, that means same, cis. It's not a slur. Cisgender is not a slur. But at that age, I knew in the depth of my being. But here's the other thing. First generation born off the reservation. I'm also Menominee out of Kashina, Wisconsin. And my nation actually held people like me in high regard. We were the two-spirit people. We were the medicine people, the storytellers, the visionary. We held positions of high regard. If you were born into a family, your family was considered blessed. If only the people living in this city could even hear that one little piece of information. Because all y'all are blessed. All y'all have families that are blessed. I met a magical unicorn mom on the last panel that is like, talk about blessed, right? I told her, I was like, I need to have dinner with you or something because you're amazing. Yeah, I bet. And so, and here's the other thing about my mom. As she continued to decline and she started to lose language more and more and more, she only misgendered me 3 times. COVID took her last year. At that point, she was in a memory care unit in an assisted living facility, and she had survived all the way up until July 26th. And then COVID took her. But she always saw me as a boy from that moment I told her until the day that she died. And so if my mom, who is losing her mental faculties, can remember and see me as male and affirm me for who I say I am, then what's wrong with the people that have their full mental capacities, right? And I don't say that to shame them, because you're right. Although ignorance is a lack of knowledge, it's also not a bad thing. And there are people who lack the knowledge and awareness to be open and affirming about people like us, right? Mm-hmm. I have these kinds of conversations all the time. I will talk to the most radical right fundamentalist that's in the room, and I will listen. And I will look for an opportunity to say something they cannot deny. I don't expect the youth in this room to do that. Live your lives. Do exactly what everyone else has been saying here. Live your life. Be proud. Don't let anybody put you in a box, because I lived 50 years being something that made you all comfortable while I died inside. I would not put anybody else, including the most radical right-wing GOP fundamentalists, in that box. I wouldn't. It isn't a box I would want anyone in, because when I came out as trans, my own LGBTQ plus community that was supposed to be more knowledgeable and aware and affirming and understanding wasn't. I had people go, "What? Wait a minute, but you're gay. Does that mean you're going to date men?" I'm like, oh my God, sexual orientation, gender identity, separate things, people. I mean, I could go on forever and ever, and I won't, but that's one coming out story. I mean, my parents weren't supportive the first time I came out. Not because of a fault of theirs. I mean, when I told them that I was attracted to feminine presenting people, my mom disowned me. Yes, the same mom that actually honored and affirmed me as trans, but in that time period, right, in the late 80s, mid to late 80s, that's what you got. I mean, I talked at the first panel, I said, this is epic right here. What's happening here is epic.
I want to clap about that.
And the people who are putting this on for you are doing it out of their own compassion in their heart. They're not being paid to do this. I know, because I helped start Heartland Pride in Omaha. I was one of the founders of Heartland Pride and served on the board for 5 years. It is a thankless position, because not only do you have to serve the community who has their, I don't like this, I want this, what about that? Can we do this? How about there? How about here? Wait a minute.
I seem the one you're making.
And then, then you've got the folks outside of the community, right? And all you got to do is learn how to roll with the punches. Not everybody's going to like you, and that's not a big deal. But the ones that do, pull them close and hang on tight.
Yeah. Thanks, Eli. So if you can't tell, we all like to talk. So I want to, I have a couple questions if there aren't any from the audience, but I would love, okay, y'all, we all like to talk. So let's have like 2 or 3 people answer each question, not all of us, and try to keep it short, okay? Because okay. All right, because I want to do as many as possible. So is there anyone in the room with a question? If not, I have some more prepared that I'd be happy to.
Have one raise your hand and I'll bring you a mic. Yes.
Okay, coming from a conservative family that's kind of hardcore homophobic, how was it like how were you able to like come out to them?
Mm-hmm.
I'll take this. It will never be like you expect it to be, and the fear will always be worse than the experience. And it's not always good, and it's not always great, and it's kind of in between for me. And I won't talk about my specific experience, but to me, it was a learning process. It wasn't like I dropped this knowledge on them and then instantly we run off into the sunset with rainbows and unicorns. But that would have been nice. But it was just, they had to learn and understand first. And their first reaction isn't always the best reaction until they have time with it. It settles in, they learn, they get some information if they are smart about it. And it gets better the more time they have. Because they love you. They want you to be happy. And it takes for a while for them to realize that their definition of happy isn't your definition of happy. And being your true self is what it takes for you to be personally happy. And that's what they really want. It just sometimes takes a little while to get there. But I'm not saying that you can't have really, horrendous experiences coming out, because I've heard the stories and it does happen. Thankfully, I just went to a wedding of my cousins, and I was very afraid because that side of the family is very conservative, and they all welcomed my spouse Chelsea with open arms, and were wonderful people. And I was still at 37 afraid, but it was wonderful. It was a process. We got there.
One of the things I want to say really quick is Norfolk hasn't learned what snapping is. And I've seen Eli and I have both done it. So if someone says something that resonates with you or feels really true or really good, or it's something that you agree with, or something we're talking and you want to affirm that person and be like, yes, I hear you, you can snap. And it just...
You were saying, hurry up.
No.
instead of
So you don't have to do
applauding
it
and
super-
stopping,
Yeah.
instead of applauding and stopping the conversation, you snap, because then the person is being affirmed for what they said that you thought was cool, and right, and it doesn't stop the momentum.
Yeah, so I wanted to just drop that piece of advice real quick that you can do that. I wanted to share really quick too, because my dad is a Christian pastor and a great dude. You guys, if my emotions are not super steady, I cry, so just be prepared for that. But I knew in 8th grade was my time that I knew for sure that I was Pans is my identity. Or Pan. I always add an S. I don't know why. But I was afraid for a really long time. And I was 29 years old when I came out to my family, to my parents. And I will never forget the first words out of my dad's mouth. And that was, I love you. That's all it took. And so, I know, Norfolk is snapping. It's really cool. Progress. And so it's just been it isn't always bad, It can be. And one of the questions that I have is if I would have come out in 8th grade, would my experience have been different? Because my parents have been on their own journey, we all are. Right? I've had my own journey too of being in that Christian faith and not knowing how to integrate my faith with who I knew I was, that's hard. That's really hard. And so it isn't always bad. And for some of us, it's really hard. It's really hard. One of the statistics that I shared in the parent panel that I just wanted to share with you really quickly is, 42% of all LGBTQ youth have seriously contemplated attempting suicide in the last 12 months. 42%. Okay. What we know to be sure, especially for trans individuals, is that one positive adult relationship, one, reduces the risk of suicide by 50%. Okay. So for those allies in the room, for those parents in the room, all of us were youth at some point, some of us more recently than others, who struggled, I'm just, with our identity and who we were. And one adult can make a difference, one adult. And so if you have the opportunity, be that adult.
I just want to say something real quick because this is my best friend that just asked this question. Please, please, I'm gonna call you out. If you need anything or if you need to talk to anybody, please reach out because I love you so much. Platonically, no homo, bro.
The youth.
To segue, if anybody in the community needs anything, your Norfolk area Pride people are here for you. And find us on Facebook, find us around town. We will be your support.
If I may. I will just add to anybody that's considering coming out. I would just make sure that you're safe. I think is the most important thing because, my own cousin had to flee to Mexico from coming out, so it still does happen, and it still is potentially dangerous and actually could be very harmful. So just have a place, have a safe setting, have someone or somewhere to go. Just worst case scenario because it does still happen, and like everybody is saying up here, there are safe places. And friendly and familiar faces that you can come to. But I think that is one of the biggest and most important things that I tell people when they ask me about coming out and how it was okay. And luckily I have the most amazing mother in the entire world and loving father. So that is my thing. Just make sure you're safe before you do it.
Yeah. One thing I want to add really quick that you made me think of too is if you're a part of the community, you do not owe your coming out to anybody. That is your story. That is your choice. And I know from the community, sometimes there can be pressure that we have to be brave and we have to be out and whatever. But if you're in an unsafe situation or for whatever reason, you're not ready, that's okay. That is okay. And the rest of us will carry our love and joy and the community for you until you're ready.
I want to add dovetail into that. Coming out is not a choice. Making the decision to come out and share it with other people is the really only choice that's there. Because nobody chooses, whether your experience is good or bad or indifferent, nobody chooses to go through some of the circumstances that one goes through with coming out. If you were choosing that, you'd be insane. You mentally wouldn't choose some of the experience you have, particularly in a smaller community. And so I love hearing that, there are people here and allies here for particularly the youth. Those statistics are alarming and upsetting. Nobody should die because they can't be who they are. To me, it's just incredibly insane. And it sounds so simplistic to deal with, but it's not. And so have that person and someone to talk to and be that person for other people.
So just also to put that statistic into reality for those of us that are Norfolk residents, this is not for the whole area, but for Norfolk itself, the most recent data, and of course we can't survey youth or, you know what I mean, kids who are still in school, but the most recent data that we can prove is 16% of the current population is of the LGBTQ community, and the real estimates is that it's 25%, that 1 in 4 individuals are part of the LGBTQ community. What that means when I say that is there are probably about 995 youth in Norfolk that are part of the LGBTQ community in Norfolk Public Schools. Okay, so in Norfolk Public Schools, there's probably 995 individuals who are of the LGBTQ community. What that means is that 399 of them have seriously contemplated attempting suicide in the last 12 months. 399 kids in our community have seriously contemplated attempting suicide. It's not okay.
You gotta say this town is very judgmental.
Yep.
So I think there's a lot of work here.
Yep.
There is indeed a lot of work to be done. And also understanding, you know, the only choice I made was to love myself, to accept myself for who I am fully in different iterations in my life, right? Because when I came out to my parents in the early 80s as being gay, my mom disowned me. My dad, it was a complete opposite reaction, like what you were saying. Like you can't expect it. I thought my mom would be in a puddle of tears and that my dad would be angry, and it was the complete opposite. And my dad, it wasn't until just before he died, and he died about 17, 18 years ago, but like 6 months before he died, he calls me and he's like, "You have to come over." And I'm like, "Why?" And he goes, "Just get here now." And I was like, okay. So I go over and I'm helping him juice, and we go sit out on the front porch and we're drinking juice, and he says, "I know why you're gay." And I was like, okay, humor me. Why not, right? And I had been out for a number of years past that, right? And he says to me, "Do you remember that time when we were in the car and you were sitting in the back seat with your brother, and you couldn't have been more than, I don't know, 6 or 7 or 8, and my brother's about a year and a half older than me." And I knew instantaneously when he brought this up, I was like, yes, I do know. The time that I said that I was afraid of you? And he said, "Yes." And I said, "You heard that?" And he goes, "Yes, that's why you're gay, because you were afraid of me." And I'm like, "No." I mean, nice try. But you know why I was afraid of you? Because I was this big, you were this big, and you would come home from working on a job site, because he was in construction, all sweaty with his big old, boots on, and he'd be barking at us to help him take his boots off, and barking at my mom to make his dinner, and all these other things. I was like, I was scared of this big, huge, giant human with the full, facial hair coming into the house, storming in like a tornado. That's what I was afraid of. That didn't make me gay. And, because that's the other thing. It's a stereotype to think that people are gay because a parent doesn't love and support them. It's a stereotype. It's not true. My parents did the best they could with what they had, and my parents in some ways did some really lovely things for their kids. In other ways, not so much, right? But I would say this much. If you are sitting in this audience today and you are struggling, do reach out to someone today. Come talk to me. Come talk to somebody on the board. You're not alone. If you want to Facebook message me, you don't even want to talk to me in person, but you want to Facebook message me, do that. Friend request me. Go follow Speaking of Happy on Facebook and send me a message there. Shoot me an email. My contact information is out there. I'm here and doing the work that I do because you all deserve to be thriving in your lives, not just surviving. Our transgender, non-binary, gender non-conforming youth, like the statistic that she shared earlier, also transgender folks, most especially Black transgender women are being murdered at high rates.
Life expectancy of in their 30s.
35. average life expectancy is 35. So all of these things are real. You know, we were talking about in the panel earlier about our mental health care, right? We also have to bust up the biases and stereotypes and stigmas and the crap around that. My brain is a part of my body, just like my heart. Nobody says to me when I go to have my heart checked, "Oh my God, why are you doing that?" Well, I don't know, because I'm about to have a heart attack. When our heads are feeling like there's something off, believe that. And it's okay to go and get help to make your head feel better.
And I want to give a shout out to Aaron's wife, Chelsea Shutter, who's back in the spouse. She's your wife? We use spouse. Okay, sorry, spouse. My bad.
I'll be quick, I promise.
Yeah.
As I was sitting here listening to these comments, one thing for me that I've noticed in recent years is I often get told I'm a selfish person for being me. And, you know, whether it's family or friends or former family or former friends through the process, you're never selfish for being who you are and respecting and appreciating who you are and how you feel as you, because you only have you to deal with. And, you know, you can get stuck in the guilt of all that process sometimes because it does affect other people. But the important thing to remember is you're never selfish for being you, regardless of what people tell you, because they will. And some will never stop telling you that you're being selfish to live as who you are and how you feel. So don't ever feel selfish.
Yep. All right, we probably have time for one more question.
So, I am a trans guy in high school and, you know, person of color. How do you deal with people, you know, misgendering you or, you know, outing you to multiple people when you don't tell them that they can?
Take this one.
That's, yeah.
So I'm a drag mother. I have 50 children plus. I don't keep track of them all. But I have several of them that are either non-binary or transgender, or they have specific pronouns that they like. From a parent side of it, I've known many of these kids since they were 12, 13, 14. They've been to prides, and now they're part of my drag family and everything of that nature. And I know you're going to hear a lot about this from the others. If you are the person who is transgender and you have chosen pronouns that your parents and friends aren't necessarily 100% on board with yet, give them a chance. Because honestly, like one of my friends, I called him he from literally birth until 19, and then decided it was she. And she lived with me, and I was trying very hard. And one day I said he, and she flipped on me, and I said, "Oh, no, baby. I've had 19 years of calling you by the other name, by the other pronouns. Give me one. Come on, I at least deserve one more try." So she understood, and she goes, "Yeah, I guess 19 years does allow you, you know, a couple of mess ups." It happens. It really does. And there are times I meet thousands of people every month, and it is so hard to remember everyone's pronouns and things of that nature. Have a little patience, because just because you've come to the conclusion and you're like, "Yes, I'm transgender," that's super great. I'm so super happy for you. But remember, everybody else has a learning curve too, and they need a little time for that. Because sometimes, like, one of my kids just came out to me transgender last week. And I said, "That's great, baby. Let's talk about your journey. Let's talk about how you want to be, who you want to be." But you know, you got to remember, everybody else isn't going to get as fast to that point as you are. So please be respectful of both sides.
I'm gonna probably get under your skin, Martina. Yeah. Just a FYI. Please don't put it on the other person for you to get caught up with their pronouns, because it's actually not okay to do that. And your feelings are absolutely valid. I totally get it. Okay? I totally get it. And it is really hard. And for myself, what I needed to do, I needed to rally the people with me. So I have my partner who we made an arrangement. We have a signal. When we go out to eat and and something happens and the wait person walks up and says, "What would you ladies like today?" You know, it's like if I give the code word, my partner knows to deal with it. Right? And usually I give the code word and walk away and let them have the conversation. Right? If I don't give the code word and I say, well, first of all, what I would really like is not to be referred as a lady, right? Because that doesn't honor and affirm me. So I have to take time, unfortunately, to educate the person that's sitting there. And actually, I have some cards for you to make it easy. You can just hand them out. And it says, you met someone today that lives outside the gender binary. Because your expression is separate from your gender identity, as you know, and not everybody, unfortunately, is caught up to speed yet, because they're looking at you and making assumptions based on your hair, your body, and things, right? But you can actually keep expressing exactly as you are and proudly say, no, my pronouns are he, him. And please just honor them. I'm asking you to honor them because they're not a choice. Martina's pronouns aren't a choice. Nobody in this room, their pronouns aren't a choice. If I started referring to you as she, her, would that kind of make you go, what is wrong with Eli, right? Because your pronouns are your pronouns. Exactly, right? And so that's one of the things to think about. Yeah, you can be respectful while you're sharing that, but also go to people. Like, I want to give you my contact information. I want you to call me. I want you to vent to me. I want you to tell me how frustrated you are, because the same people every day are still getting it wrong. You can't change them, but you can get the feelings out that you're having, because it does hurt not to be seen, honored, and affirmed. I spent 50 years expressing as something that I wasn't. I get it, right? I get it. So let's talk after this.
I'm going to answer your question. And I wasn't going to, and I really have no right to, because I'm not transgender. I'm a dude. I'm a guy. And for the most part, I think I'm somewhat masculine. I mean, I've always had effeminate things in my life. But here's what I want you to hear. When I heard that question and everybody else talk, when you came in, I noticed you. I've never met you before. I've never seen you before. But I did happen to catch you, and I thought to myself, what a beautiful, interesting, expressive young lady. That's what I saw. I didn't see anything else. Sometimes you just don't have to worry about what other people see. It's what you see. And then surround yourself with people that see what you see.
One of the things I want to add to that too, if you're an ally in the room or someone who is learning, when an LGBTQ person gets mad at you for what you do, we deal with this every day. We're constantly coming out. We are constantly, because I've put my name out into the community as like this pride person, this is how people associate me now, right? I have started to get phone calls from parents and kids who are suffering. And when we go through this day after day after day after day, and someone misgenders us or assumes an identity that isn't our identity, and we snap and are pissed or whatever, it's really not about you. Like, you know, it's just understanding that, like, sometimes we're at our wit's end, you know? And so always love, like for every, you know, on both sides, like my advice is to always believe the best in the other person, you know? Believe that they are doing their best and hold them accountable, you know?
And if you make a mistake, just own up to it. It's okay. Like, I do that all the time with my one of my best friends. Knew them as a female for a long time. It took me a while to get the male pronouns down, but I've got it. I stuck the landing. But it takes some time, but I own up to it. I'm like, I screwed up. I'm sorry. I'm working on it. Just own up to it and just understand that pronouns matter, because that's that person's who they are. And that's why we tell people our pronouns, because it's who we are. And that's important, and we want to be seen. So it sometimes takes some effort. It's all a learning process. But the more we all accept and understand the differences among us, the more together we are as a community. So that's why it's important. Educate, learn, listen. Listen first.
I don't know about y'all. It's already been an hour. That went super fast. That went super fast. So unfortunately, we don't have time for more questions right now. What I do know for sure about each of these individuals sitting up here is that they're full of love. I know that, and I also know that if you want to find them on Facebook or their websites or whatever it is, in your day of guide, there is a link or a QR code to each of these individuals' names. And feel free to reach out to them and have conversations, because I think each of us is willing to do that. So will you give my friends a round of applause, please? Y'all, you are part of Norfolk, Nebraska's first ever Pride Festival.
I forgot something.
Yes.
I forgot. Wait, I wanted to present something to Mo. You know, because that's what I do.
Gift of love.
You can't do anything about this here. But this is. I want to just say that again.
Oh, look at that.
The folks,
That is fabulous.
the folks who are putting on this Pride.
No.
The folks that are putting on this Pride have put a lot of heart and soul and passion. This team has put up with stuff from the community that they shouldn't have had to put up with because of the lack of knowledge and awareness. And so I wanted to give you this so that you can celebrate with your team afterwards. Nice rainbow, true colors, champagne, because it's a pretty big deal. And if you want to know how to make the biggest difference, volunteer, because it takes something to put something like this on. Set up, clean up, all of it takes something. So volunteer, give a couple hours of your time.
We also have donation buckets set around.
Yes. Give money.
Please donate. We are poor.
Yes, we are working on fundraising for all of our projects. Of course, for the last year with COVID, it's been really hard to put on events like this. And yes, one other thing, we do have peer groups for each age, okay? So starting in October, we will have a peer group for 5th through 8th graders. My wife, Angie, who is producing, and I lead that group. We also have a high school group that meets once a month, also led by Angie and I. And then we have a parent group that meets once a month that is also starting in October. And we have an LGBTQ adult group, so for 18 plus. These groups mostly are social in nature, but there's a support component just to knowing each other and being around each other. And so we would definitely invite you, if you're part of the community, to be a part of that. If you are part of the community and need to bring an ally with you to be comfortable, please feel free to do that also. Information is on our Facebook, on our website, and also at the info table. So feel free to do that. One last thing, we are going to wrap up here at the Art Center at 7 o'clock. In just a few minutes, we're going to do some announcements and awards at the main stage outside, and I would love for each of you to please be there. So, yes, thank you all for attending. Oh, yeah.
One last thing that I always kind of think is important. Pride isn't just one day out of the year. No. It's something that you live inside every single day. You make the choice to get up and be the best person you can be, to be your most authentic self. And when you make that choice, you change the world. So Pride isn't just one day a year.
One more thing, Martina is, if you're 21 plus, Martina is our host of tonight's drag show at the Mint and doing bingo.
I'll be doing bingo, all kinds of crazy stuff.
Yep. So we have a social starting at 7 p.m., bingo at 8 p.m., and the show is at 10 p.m. And we have like 11 performers or something like that? Or
13.
13 performers. So
And
it's going to be a great time.
I'm actually going to do something I've never done before.
All right.
Before we totally wrap up though.
Yeah.
Because I know that like not everybody who is in my kind of age group doesn't always feel comfortable talking to somebody who's an adult. So if you live in Norfolk and you go to the Norfolk High School, I'm there. You can find me literally anywhere. Just come up to me and be like, "Hey, I'm gay. Can we talk?" And I'll like drop everything for you. I promise.
Yeah. Awesome.